Michigan versus the NCAA. Still red hot, as it turns out. We've got several stories out this week. Ross Dellinger, who's doing as good a job at breaking news as there is in college athletics right now, dropped it on Yahoo Sports yesterday, or 2 days ago, I guess it's been by now. The quick bullet points, I want to get these to you just in case you've been living your life and you hadn't been paying attention. There's no resolution in this case. So in NCAA/college football parlance, that means this thing's going to trial. There is no settlement, and there is 137 pages that Michigan sent back. So the way this stuff works is when the NCAA investigates you, they announce a preliminary investigation. There's like a preliminary letter of investigation. That's what they send you when they say Pate State did something wrong or we think you did, and we're going to investigate it. Okay, then they investigate. And then like 19 years later, they send you what is called an NOA, or a notice of allegations, at which point you have X number of days to respond. So Michigan apparently typed for all of those X number of days because they had 137 pages in response. We're not saving any trees in this NCAA investigation, I promise you that. So let me be very, very clear before I get into what's going to happen. So, spoiler alert, I think this is going to sound really pro-Michigan. To some of my friends out there that want to see this program burned to the ground and there's nothing left resembling the Michigan football program, what I'm going to say is going to sound very pro-Michigan, I think. So let me make sure and be clear with you. My personal feel on this. My personal feel, of course they did it. My personal feel is, of course just about everyone in the program knew about it. I have always believed you have to be incredibly ignorant to truly believe that this was a lone wolf, isolated over in a corner incident, and Connor Stalions is doing whatever he's doing. Folks in that building are smart enough to work at Michigan and get a job at the highest levels of college football, but they're too stupid to realize what's going on. I've never believed that. To believe otherwise would be to believe that even up to Jim Harbaugh, he is good enough and smart enough to take a team to a Super Bowl or to win a national championship and to run a major college football program, but he also doesn't know what's going on in his own building. So I've never believed that. So I've always thought just about everyone there knew what was going on. I think it was wrong. I think it was probably a violation of rules, although we could argue over which rules they violated, and we will in just a second. Or maybe we won't because I don't want to relitigate that tonight. I think they did it. I think it was wrong. I think they did it because they wanted to gain a competitive advantage. I think maybe they did gain a competitive advantage, but even if they didn't, the goal was to, and they went about it through nefarious means. I believe all those things. Jesse, Colin, I think I was very clear there. I don't think there's any reading between the lines. I'm not standing up for Michigan. I'm not carrying the flag or carrying the water for Michigan. I think they did it. That doesn't matter. I sound very worked up about this only because I already worked out this whole segment with a buddy of mine who I yelled at for the better part of an hour on speakerphone at the YMCA in Nashville earlier today about this same topic. He's like, well, if you think all that, then you think Michigan's about to burn to the ground. It doesn't matter what I think. A couple of things matter. Number one, what can be proven? And then number two, what kind of punitive measures are you actually capable of taking if you're the NCAA these days? Hello? So the piece of paper here in my hand, there's what the NCAA used to be, and then there's what the NCAA is nowadays. So very quickly, we have no resolution in this matter, and this thing is going to go before NCAA trial, for lack of a better term. I'm just trying to put this in terms that normal people understand. Two things this hinges on for me, okay? Very, very simple here. This hinges on a couple of things for me. Number one is procedure, and number two is more theoretical. As far as the procedural part, who are the NCAA sources on this? This is very important. And Michigan needs to hammer this home, and I think Michigan is in the process of hammering this home. Because it doesn't so much matter what we did, it matters what you can prove, and the NCAA's got anonymous sourcing in this, by the letter of their own report apparently, that Michigan badly wants revealed. And they should, because sourcing matters here. And Michigan's looking at this and saying, boy, these are some pretty hefty allegations. Like half a dozen level 1 violations you're throwing our way. Shouldn't we at least know who our accusers are? Because it seems fair. Seems fair to me. Seems like a very, very tactical, proper course of action for them. And I'll tell you why. Michigan's going to hammer home on this because if you got a disgraced former staffer, one that's been fired for all sorts of non-football related things, that's about as specific as I want to get, and that's your source, well, that matters to me because I can discredit him pretty darn quick. Is it a former player that transferred, maybe even in conference, maybe even to a rival? Because if that's your source, I may, at the very least, muddy the waters in terms of bias and maybe outright questionable credibility. I could do that because I'm Michigan, and you will never out-lawyer me. So again, doesn't matter what happened, it matters what you can prove. And then also procedurally, I think Michigan's going to have a lot of success if they really press the issue on who is your sourcing on this. It's just a feel. It's just a feel I have there. Now, the second part of this, and this is really the part that I think is going to rule the day at the end of the day. I told you I had a very colorful and animated conversation, shouting match with a buddy. I mean, it cost me my voice. I thought it was going to cost me my voice today. Is Michigan going to go down for this? That's really all anyone cares about. All the rest of the stuff's minutia, and lawyers can figure that out. If you're a North Dakota State fan or an Ohio State fan or a Michigan fan or a Georgia fan, whatever, you're watching this stuff from the outside looking in. You're saying, all right, get all the legalese out of the way. Is Michigan going to burn for this? Are they going to go down for this? No. No, at least not as you and I define going down. I am very confident in telling you that Michigan punitively may suffer in the pocketbook. They may suffer in the wallet. You could certainly sell me on the idea that, boy, Michigan's going to have to pay a hefty fine for this. Well, who cares? Number one, because fans, that doesn't matter to you. It doesn't matter to me. It matters to a bunch of people who can afford to pay it. But in terms of punitive measures that impact that roster, in terms of punitive measures the NCAA could take that impact the future of that program and their ability to compete, taking away scholarships, the dreaded postseason ban, you would have to staple my eyelids to the back of my forehead and have me watch that happen in order for me to believe that's ever going to happen to this program. And I'm going to tell you why I believe that will never happen, because it's too big to fail. We have long since reached that point in college athletics. The too big to fail part, you could be talking about banks during the Great Recession, or you could be talking about college football programs. But as the money has exploded up and up and up in this sport, it's not so much a coincidence it's coincided with the NCAA's effectiveness and authority going down and down and down and dwindling to where it is today. So whatever that inflection point was, whichever moment on the grid that those two lines crossed in opposite directions, it's in the rearview mirror. So to me, gone are the days where the NCAA is going to take on any program and really kneecap them in terms of their ability to compete on the field moving forward. Now, I'm talking about major programs, because it's not the NCAA versus Michigan. That's the way it's been billed on the marquee. If the time comes where the NCAA really does look at Michigan and say, we're going to hammer you in areas beyond just the wallet, then it won't be the NCAA versus Michigan. It'll be the NCAA versus Michigan and the Big Ten and every major network that the Big Ten is in a media rights deal with. And I just want you to sound this out. I just want you to walk it through to a logical conclusion. These are networks that have invested several billions of dollars into acquiring the media rights for these conferences, which just is a fancy way of saying they've got a bunch of assets and a few of them are very valuable, and Michigan's one of them in the Big Ten. And you are paying those billions of dollars because the value of the product you can put on your TV screen on Saturday with one of those institutions competing against another is enough to sell advertising against to more than make our revenue back. It hurts you greatly if those assets are damaged, which is why it's not going to be allowed to happen. There is no world, to me, until proven otherwise, there is no world this point in moving forward where any of the big boys, Michigan certainly being one of them, is taken down in a way that used to happen. If you're 18 years old and you're watching the show, welcome to the show. Make sure you're subscribed. But if you're watching the show, it used to be that the mere mentioning of those four letters together, NCAA, that was the equivalent of the feds knocking on your door. That was the equivalent of the IRS coming after you, normal citizen who works a 9 to 5, you live in the real world, you have to suffer consequences. That's what it used to be like. It's not like that anymore. The money's simply too big. The programs are too big to fail. So you can fine them if you want to. Michigan's got several billions more than that media rights deal will ever be worth. Googling endowments is just a fascinating rabbit hole to go down. It really makes you aware of how small you are in the grand scheme of things. But there is no way that the NCAA has the authority, even if they wanted to be able to pull that off in the modern day of college athletics. That is my feel on that. And the other thing, so now we've established my feel on that front, but let me tell you, there will come a time where this is eventually over. There will come a time where the dust eventually settles and whatever happens, and all right, the NCAA leaves town and all right, everyone goes back to their homes and they close the door. It's at that moment that Tony Pate and the Big Ten, they got to have their Wyatt Earp moment. Just like Greg Sankey's got to have it in the SEC. These conference commissioners and these league offices are really going to have to step up. They're going to have to put them on the table, if you know what I mean. They're going to have to take control because there's not enough order in college athletics right now. It will never come from the NCAA headquarters again. So if you want policing, if you want enforcement of rules, first off, you got to define the rules, and we really haven't even reached that point in collegiate athletics. But once we do, I have believed this for a while, and I continue to believe this. The authority in college football is not in Indianapolis, Indiana anymore. It is not at NCAA headquarters. It used to be, at least theatrically. It is not anymore. It's got to be at the Big Ten headquarters. It's got to be at the SEC headquarters, and you basically have to police yourselves. Now, you may listen to that, and you may say, oh, if that's what we're counting on, that's never going to happen. It's actually the opposite. It's the only way it's going to happen. Because what happens every spring is you get those coaches together, and those athletic directors meet, and those university presidents meet, and believe it or not, most of them are willing to sit in a little circle and look at each other and have, an authoritative figure in the middle and agree to terms as long as everyone's going to abide by them. I drive home to Columbus from Nashville frequently, not Ohio, Columbus, Georgia, and I drive through Atlanta. And the speed limit sign says 55. No one's doing 55. Now, if everyone would agree to do 55, I wouldn't like it, but I'd do 55. But as long as 18-wheelers are doing 75 or 80, I'm not driving 55. There's just no way I'm doing that. And so that's going to happen. That's got to happen at the conference level. In the Big Ten, it's got to happen at the conference level in the SEC, and I think that's the logical next chapter after all this is settled. But Michigan, they can be guilty of a lot of things, and I think they are. What you're guilty of versus what the impact of it is in modern-day college athletics, I think is two totally different things.